Welcome, everybody, to yet another Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. That's interesting. I'm James Price, along with Cole Whiston and Rob Bensilamon. And fellas, we got a whole lot of things to talk about. A lot of negatives. We'll try and sprinkle some positives in there. But boy, it's been tough. Let's get to this thing. Let's get it over with.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
You know, fellas, we talk about it a lot, how the dulcet tones of Dan Shulman talking about Jose Bautista's bat flip. And, you know, there was a time, it may not feel like it right now. There was a time when home runs were frequent by the Toronto Blue Jays. We've seen them sprinkled in a little bit here and there recently, I guess. But in the end, the offense continues to completely blow. They lose yet another series, a very winnable series where it feels like they kind of beat themselves again. Rob, let's start with you, pal. How are we feeling after this pretty pathetic weekend series?
Yeah, so the lost series 2 out of 3 to the Guardians. You mentioned they were pricey, home runs sprinkled in there, but ultimately not very frequently. Quite literally, as infrequently as any team in baseball. 30th, dead last in baseball in home runs hit. I'm looking at the Angels, who the Jays go. They're going to Anaheim tomorrow to play the Angels, who are not a good team. Obviously, we all know the Angels are a bad team. They're very much below average offense, and yet they have almost double the home runs that we have. And it's just like a harsh reality. Oh, wait, every team is capable of doing more damage than your Toronto Blue Jays, our Toronto Blue Jays, I should say. Yeah, man, it was brutal. It's consistent with the theme of what the last few years has been like, where the Toronto Blue Jays, they just frustrate the hell out of you. You think that they're going one step up with a couple of those really nice clutch wins against the Red Sox. They won that series, winning a couple games that they shouldn't have won, if we're being honest. And a big reason why they won those games was the home run ball, the big 3-run home run. Anthony Santander on that Tuesday game, or the dates are all
doesn't matter.
But whatever. The second game, Santander is the 3-run home run. The Jays end up winning in extras, and obviously Vladdy the next day, the big 3-run home run in the 8th that they would eventually go on to win. And the last couple days are a perfect encapsulation of what this team is. It's just not good in situational hitting, not good when it comes to power. 26th in all of baseball in WRS with runners in scoring position, meaning that they do no damage. Absolutely not. And the reality is, man, is that in baseball, we have grown up in the game. At least you and I, Price. I know, Prof, you're a little bit late towards like watching baseball daily, but it's always been you have a runner on third with one out. You're probably going to score that run. You should score that run. If you don't score that run, it's a massive disappointment. In today's day and age, that runner, and it's not just a Blue Jays thing, it's like 50 to 60% chance that a runner scores from third with less than 2 out, which sounds crazy, but the reality is there's just no balls in play. Everyone's striking everybody out. Defenses are shifting. You know, obviously the shift's banned, but now all of a sudden you have like all the analytics, you know, like where the fielders to stand, and it's just hard to hit the ball. It's plain and simply just hard to hit the ball. And a lot of these teams run into these issues, but the difference is that the 3 to 4 scoring opportunities a game that those teams have, it's colored over because eventually you're going to run into the 3-run home run. But that doesn't happen with the Blue Jays team. They don't run into the 3-run home run, and that's why you're shooting yourselves in the foot repeatedly. You're not scoring that runner. You have all the makings of a big inning, and ultimately the best you can do is seemingly just score one run. That's what happened these past 2 days against Cleveland, and that's why what was honestly a very winnable series, even a sweepable series, dare I say, you come out with a series loss, and it's just a really big gut punch. It's very deflating series, I would say, there, Pricey. To answer your question in a long-winded way, take it over, Prof.
I'll put it even more simply than that. They left 25 runners on base in that 3-game series, and they are 27th in OPS with runners in scoring position. Right. You had Gavin Williams at a near triple digits in pitches through 4 innings, and you scored 3 runs, or eventually 4 runs, whatever. That's as simple as it gets. I think you put it perfectly in the group chat yesterday when you said a good team sweeps that series. With that many chances and that many runners on base, a good team finds a way to win that game, win all of those games, 2 of which you had the lead in. And, well, you won one of them, but yeah. Then the other one you had a lead in, you blew it. And then the other one, you should have had the lead long before you were trying to come back from a deficit. So I completely agree. There's just nothing really all that positive to say about this lineup, and your big acquisition, who hit 44 home runs last year, has been statistically your worst position player in WAR on Baseball Reference. Anthony Santander has been your worst player, and the third spot in your order has been, I think, their third worst in the lineup this year in terms of OPS. He is at the root of the offensive woes of this team. Now, luckily, it's May, and the famous video that happened after he did hit that three-run home run that you mentioned, Rob, where he came into the clubhouse and he said, April's over. His OPS in his career from April to May jumps up 171 points, which is just bonkers. But I give him till May 20th for that to happen. If it doesn't happen by May 20th, and I wouldn't even be opposed if we get a switch before then. If it does not happen by May 20th, which I believe is the end of your Padres series at home, you're on that'd be 2 series in a row at home after coming back from Seattle. The reason why I want to give him that leash is because Seattle's a hard place to hit. So you give him 2 series at home against the Rays and the Padres, and then you make a decision. In my opinion, unless another bat comes into play, the only logical solution is just switch Vladdy and Santander. And I know that maybe Vladdy has the success that he has because he's hitting in front of Anthony Santander, but I can't imagine that's the case right now when, if I'm a pitcher, I'm happy to avoid Vladdy right now. Happy to avoid Vladdy. So I think that's the logical solution if by the end of May, the OPS didn't get the jump that we were anticipating it getting, and Anthony Santander is still one of your worst hitters.
Yeah, I'm going to build off of a bunch of those points. This is the whole problem with this Jays team is the lineup protection is nowhere to be found. Look at the Baltimore Orioles, and as pathetic as they've been this year, offensively, that's what you looked at their team last year, 1 through 9. You were scared shitless, whoever you were facing. So the lineup protection for Santander is like, whoever you face, you got protection in front, behind, 2 spots in front, 2 spots behind. With the Blue Jays, for God's sakes, we're praying that George Springer at 30, whatever he is now,
35, 36.
is going to hang in there for dear life and be your cleanup hitter. Like, that's not going to happen. People are totally fine with attacking George. And with that being said, they're totally fine with attacking Anthony Santander. So that's the big issue there. But I need to go back to what Rob said. And it pissed me off to no end this last series against Cleveland. You mentioned, Rob, about the just pissing down their leg when dudes get in on base. And a prime example, Cole, you mentioned, they had Gavin Williams on the ropes in every inning, 100 pitches in the 4th. Why is that? Let's break down these innings, shall we? Especially the first 3. So Bo leads off the game with a homer. We're like, oh, okay, vibes are immaculate. You've won 3 in a row. Bo gets his first homer. You lead off the ball. You with the first pitch dink. We're feeling good. Vladdy strikes out, but then Santander singles and George doubles. You have second and third, 1 out, time to add on to it. Varsho strikes out, Barger strikes out. You get nothing. But then Jays fans are like, well, it's okay. We got 1. No, stop. Bottom second, Nathan Lucas walks, then gets the strike him out, throw him with Tyler Heineman. So there's 2 out, nobody on. Then Andreas Jimenez singles to right, steals second. Bo walks, 2 on, 2 out for Vlad. Strikes out. Nothing. Bottom 3, starts with the Santander double. Then George rips one up the middle for a single. You have guys in the corners with nobody out. And Varsho strikes out. But then Barger walks, bases loaded, 1 away. Nathan Lucas then walks. Oh, great stuff. You got to run with the bases loaded walk. Yeah, Heineman strikes out. Jimenez pops out. That's all you get. And the fact that you only got 2 runs out of all that is embarrassing. You had a chance to just destroy them early on.
Yeah, blow the game
Put the game out of reach because we know how taxed the bullpen is, and we saw it in this series as to how taxed they really are. And the fact that you can't come through, and God, do we even need to go to the next game where they lose by 1 run? And in the first inning, he had runners in the corners with nobody out. And the fact
cartoonish, cartoonish the way they didn't score that run.
It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. Bo leads off with a double. Vlad singles. Runners in the corners. Nobody out. For Santander, we're feeling good. Ground ball to first. Bo thinks, I'm going to try and go home, I guess, but half-fast try and do it. Was the hit and run play, was the I don't know, the contact play on or something? It didn't seem that way because if that's the case, take the freak off right away. But he looked like he was in between. So that was that. He gets thrown at the plate. You get nothing, and you lose by 1 run.
Yeah.
It's pathetic, guys. It's embarrassing baseball.
Yeah, to sum it up, they can't even not can they get a big hit. They can't get a ball in play to score a runner from third. They just can't get it. It just won't happen. And the other thing, do you mention Pricey, is the pitching staff. How many blowout wins, which is 5+ runs, 5 or more runs, have we won this year? Of the 16 games that we've won, 2. Only 2. Have we won a game by 5 or more? That means the rest of your wins, the other 14 wins, were by less than 4 runs. And a lot of those, I think it was 13 or 12 of those ones.
13.
13 of those. So literally, you have 1 win by 4 runs, and then you have the other 13 wins by 3 or less. Save situations.
Embarrassing.
Pricey, I want to make note too. The game that we went to against Seattle, that was a couple weeks ago now. It's been a while. And like that game was a perfect encapsulation. It was very similar to Saturday's game, if you think about it, because we all hear the term, and baseball is a little different, but it's like they don't ask how, they ask how many. Well, in baseball, you kind of ask how as well, because I'll give you a perfect example of that game, that Friday in Seattle. Let's go back a couple weeks now. They're facing Brian Wu, really good pitcher. The Jays are, just a lot of hard contact the first few innings. They have a ton of opportunities, and just like the Saturday game, they don't have the knockout punch. What do they do? They score 1 run here, 1 run there. They have a 3-run lead, which is okay. That's all good and dandy. You end up holding on. You win that game. Everyone's feeling great. You're 4 or 500. The next game you lost. You lost the game where Rowdy Tellez hit a grand slam in extras off of what's his name? Jacob Barnes. And then you ask yourself, well, why is Jacob Barnes pitching in that game? Oh, Yimi Garcia and Jeff Hoffman are unavailable because they pitched the day before. The day before, where you had so many opportunities to blow that game open and you wouldn't have to use them. And now all of a sudden, you've impeded your chances to win the next game. It matters. It matters how you win in baseball. You need to win blowout games. You just cannot sustain this level of 1-run game, 2-run game. And obviously, hats off to the bullpen. That was their first really blow up of the year, where they actually cost you a game on Saturday there. Yeah. Jimmy Garcia looked gassed because he had pitched, 4 times in the last 5 days? Like, eventually, this formula is unsustainable. Like, it's the reason why it's very important to blow out these games is because you can give your bullpen a breather. You look at how much Jimmy Garcia and Jeff Hoffman have pitched. They're on pace to go 80+ innings this year. Like, that's just no way to live, man.
I'll take it a step further. Who do you think our best player is in Baseball Reference WAR right now? Who do you think it is?
One of the relievers, right?
Jeff Hoffman.
Yeah.
Jeff Hoffman. Yeah. Our fucking closer is our best player in terms of Baseball Reference WAR. Guess who's second?
No, probably not a reliever.
No, it's not a reliever. It's Chris Bassett. Guess who's third?
Gosman. Barrios.
Yeah,
there you go.
3 pitchers lead our team in WAR through 40 games, through 35 games.
Yeah. Pathetic.
Yeah.
That's the only word I can think of, guys. That's the really only word I can think of. Now, we could talk, let's be honest, fellas, we could talk this topic to death. But let's be honest, we've talked about it for 3 freaking years, boys. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, just content.
Yeah, and I said it to you, Pricey, before we got into this. I said, I was anticipating at some point in the season being 16-18, being below 500, and questioning how this team takes another step to get above 500. But the one thing that I cried to the Wolves all offseason on this podcast, on Blue Jay Center, is that this team is going to be better offensively. Obviously, I've been wrong so far, and I will admit to that right now. But I will say this. Hold on. This is the final note. I'll put a positive spin on it. I mentioned Anthony Santander's jump in May for OPS.
Yeah.
Bo Bichette, George Springer, and Alejandro Kirk share that exact same sentiment of 100 plus points added to their OPS in May. Vladdy's basically the same hitter as he is in April, which is a good hitter. 817 OPS, I believe it was, or right around there. So career splits suggest that this team will be better offensively in May. But now to finish off the sandwich, this team, over the course of Vladdy's entire career, has been a 500 team in May.
Yeah. I think I would agree that if you look at the numbers, this year's offense is like not much better than it was last year. I think it's pretty much on par in terms of the actual numbers. I do feel as though it is a little bit better just by the eye test. I think that a big reason why is because like they just got off to a much better start. Remember last year in April, they just couldn't hit a lick. It was
I'll be
just
honest,
anemic.
Rob.
It was awful to watch. Like the week last week, the Astros and the Yankee series. That's what all of April looked like last year, where it was just like a horrific watch. I think this year it's been a little bit better, and like you mentioned there, Prof, I do think that there are legitimate, tangible reasons to think it's going to be better. Like Anthony Santander, I think Dan mentioned on the broadcast on Saturday, he had the same number of home runs that like he had on this date last year. Oh, sorry, he had the same number of home runs on the date, whatever it was, May 4th, May 3rd, whatever it was that he had last year in Baltimore, and he ended up with 44 bombs. So that would, he's obviously not going to hit 40 more, I don't think, but like that would suggest he's due for a lot more power. We've seen it before. Obviously, Buddy too. He had like 4 home runs in June last year, or whatever it was. Remember, he turned into Luis Arias or Freddie Galvis or whatever. Right. This the singles guy at the top of the order, and he ended up with 30. And obviously, Bo, he's not going to hit 4 home runs like he did last year unless he obviously, knock on wood, gets injured. Dalton Varsho's back. He's hit a couple home runs, and Alejandro Kirk looks better at the plate, and George Springer looks better than he did a year ago. So I do think that there are tangible reasons to think it's going to get better. They've also faced better pitching. Like you look at the teams they face, other than the Nationals, it's been playoff team after playoff team. So I do think that they're it's only up from here. I think like to kind of spin it all positively at the end is that they're not in a horrible spot. If you look at this,
if I told you that we were going to be 500 at the end of April, you'd be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's more so just. It's not so much where they are in the standings and like what's more to come. Obviously, they're not in a bad position from that aspect, but I think it's more so their avenues to success, their avenues of winning.
Yeah.
It's just not sustainable. I think that's what we're kind of all getting at.
Let's be honest. You mentioned a more watchable product, and for me, it's George Springer. That's plain and simple to me. Watching him be one of the worst qualified hitters in baseball last year and continuing to run him out there as your leadoff guy, it was pathetic to watch. So have him be a competent and hell, your best hitter in the month of April. It's been definitely a pleasant surprise, but I got to rip off these offensive stats before we flip to something else. 25th in runs, 19th in hits. The thing that everyone gets horned up about, and they did through the first month, was, the Jays batting average. They're now 19th in batting average, 19th in OBP. So there's that. Slug, we know where they sit, 27th. OPS, 24th. Homers, Rob said it, dead last. Yeah, no good. No bueno.
Yep.
You know what's been keeping. Oh, you want to say something?
Yeah, and this might be the statement of the first 17 minutes of this podcast.
Fire away, bud.
Yesterday, when we had 2 runners on with a chance to win the game, and Nathan Lucas was up, I was excited.
Yeah, they also had a chance in the later innings with the bases loaded and 1 out, and they're like, let's just run out Miles Straw. Yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, that's going to go well.
Can we talk about that? Can we talk about that for a second? Because that, I like to me, I think in the days of analytics and all that, I think to me what transpired that inning is close to a fireable offense for a manager.
I mean, but who else are you going to use?
You lay a bunt down for a guy, for Miles Straw. Look, credit to Miles Straw. We've talked on this podcast. We like what he's done. He's made the most of his opportunities for the most part. But I mean, come on, man. Like, this is a guy who was on the periphery of the major leagues. He was a minor leaguer last year. Cleveland knows very well about that. I mean, they were happy to just take him. They give whatever you want. Just get rid of him. Take him off our hands. And that was just horrible, man. It was a one pitch pop up of a guy who couldn't throw a strike. I mean, Alejandro Kirk took a 2-0 pitch way outside that would have been ball 3, and then the pitch that he singled on was a slider way outside of the on 3-2. Like, this guy could not throw strikes. He's a good pitcher, Hunter Gaddis is, but I mean, to go out there first pitch when you're Miles Straw and just pop it up, I thought that was
approach.
That was rough, man.
That was the whole talk last year, right? Approach. Do you have an approach, or is it nothing to it? And clearly, Miles Straw had no freaking approach at all going into the
game. During the Miles Straw of it all, but like ultimately, like a sacrifice bunt has just become so dead in baseball now. A big reason why is because, like I mentioned, scoring a runner from third with less than 2 out has become so difficult that there's no reason to do it unless you have a legitimate good hitter. Bunting for Miles Straw makes zero sense. Like negative sense.
Yeah, absolutely nothing. Now, the only thing that has kept this team afloat, and where have we heard this before? Is there starting pitching?
Yeah.
Kevin Gausman has really found his form other than that weird Yankee game that he had. He's been outstanding this season. Chris Bassett had a ridiculous start to the year. He's kind of fallen back down a little bit, but still doing his thing and being the hound on the mound. Let's be honest, guys. Jose Barrios, other than 2 Orioles starts, he's been awesome.
Yep.
And one guy that everyone loved him last year, second half of the year. And going into the year, I think he had a good first couple of starts, I believe, to start the season. But there was never this feel, because always last year with Bowden Francis, the thought was, okay, great, but how?
Right.
What is happening? And we are now witnessing teams absolutely teeing off on Bowden Francis. And the question I got for you guys is Bowden Francis the new Babe Schneider, fellas? Like,
Yes.
yes.
I'll take this one because this is the comparison I made in the chat.
Yeah.
It is the exact trajectory if you think about it.
Yep.
It's just a year later. So, and obviously on the other side of the ball. But Davis Schneider in August of 2023 was the best hitter in baseball for a certain amount of time for the rest of the year. And yet the next year, everyone's coming into the season being like, okay, that was cute. That was obviously like really good, really impressive. But ultimately, nothing under the hood would suggest that this guy is going to be a great hitter long term. That eventually the teams are going to catch up to him, and you'll flounder, and then that'll be the end of it. It'll just be a good story. And then the weird thing that happened is that while all that did happen in the end, he got off to a decent start. Remember last year, he wasn't playing every day, and everyone was just throwing their hands up a while, like, screw the analytics, play Davis Schneider, because look at the results. They're so good. And they were. He got off to a decent start until they weren't, until he got exposed. And then he's now all of a sudden a player on the periphery of the major leagues, a guy who we don't know will ever be a Compton big leaguer at any point the rest of his career. And yeah, that's exactly what's happened with Bowden Francis. Last year, he had this incredible run in the beginning of August and to the end of the year, who had like an ERA plus that rivaled some of the best pitchers in baseball. It rivaled Paul Skeens, like the best young pitcher in the league. It rivaled Spencer Schwellenbach, who's had another great year. He was incredible. Yeah. And again, just like Schneider, got off to a decent start this year, and then all of a sudden, last couple starts, it's rough. I sent the baseball savant in the chat, which unfortunately, I apologize to the audience. We didn't get it in time to be able to post it for you guys, but his baseball savant numbers, it's rough, man. The percentiles are all low. They're all in the blues, the heavy blues, and the results, this recent stretch would suggest that this is not much of a fluke, that this is really who Bowden Francis actually is. I hate to say it because Bowden's been so good for an extended period of time, and he's given the Blue Jays a lot more than you could have asked for a guy of his stature. But unfortunately, it's not looking good, guys. Unfortunately, that I think that this is legitimately something that they have to address, and they did. We'll talk about what they did shortly, but I'm concerned. And I'm not sure how much longer you can throw Bowden Francis out there. Unfortunately, you don't really have a whole lot of options, and he's going to get a little bit more leash simply for that reason. But ultimately, you already have a murky situation with your fifth guy, obviously with Scherzer being hurt, but I think you got a murky situation with your fourth guy too. I don't have a lot of confidence in Bowden Francis moving forward, unfortunately.
Yeah. Cool. Real quick. Bowden Francis this year has had 2 starts where he hasn't allowed a homer. It was yesterday against Cleveland where he was no good, and the Mets in New York, which was interesting. But yeah, coming off that 5-homer game against the Red Sox, I don't care how bad you are, allowing 5 homers a game. Easton Lucas didn't allow that, fellas. Like 5 homers in a game is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, because he took him out of the game earlier. That's why.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Oh, it didn't allow him to, I guess.
Yeah.
So I came in to this year on this podcast, and I said I was heavily concerned about this starting pitching rotation.
Yep.
Through 35 games or whatever it is, I've been wrong. But Bowden Francis was one of those reasons. One of the main reasons, actually, why I was worried, because despite the fact that he had one of the best stretches of baseball last year, going into last year, we were like, this guy can't be we can't throw him out there every 5 days. And then we had to, and then the season was over and it didn't matter. So we did. And then voila, he became the best pitcher in baseball. But that under the hood numbers suggested that wasn't going to be sustainable. Now you look at his baseball savant from last year and you'll see a lot of red. But there's a few key points that you have to look at to understand why this year was a possibility. As a right-handed pitcher, if you can't touch 95, that's going to be an issue. And he couldn't. And he also didn't get a lot of swing and miss. He also didn't strike a lot of guys out. He also didn't get a lot of chase. Those are all things that existed last year, but he made up for it for lack of a better explanation. The book wasn't out on him. And then once the book is out on a guy, there has to be some serious adjustments made for that guy to ever get back to even close to the level that he was previously at. And this year, the biggest things that stand out is, and this was even before, he had 2 bad starts in a row. If you looked at his baseball savant 3 starts ago, he was getting hit hard all the time. It just resulted in outs most of the time, or it'd be in the 5th or 6th inning when he'd give him his first hit of the game, and it'd be a home run, and then another home run, and that was the classic Bowden thing. But this year, now it's starting right from the get-go, or in the 2nd inning or 3rd inning, or you get one time through and all of a sudden these guys are all over him, and yeah, eventually that's going to be a significant problem. So I agree with Rob. It's unfortunate that this happened, but and just like Davis Schneider last year, when it came, August and July, and we were like, how does this guy still have like an everyday role? How are we still throwing him out there? How have we not sent him back to AAA? Like, let's give somebody else a shot. The same is going to be the case this year for Bowden Francis, and that's because of the lack of starting pitching depth this team has, and where we are injuries-wise. The fact that Max Scherzer hasn't worked out in the slightest, the fact that despite our 2 new additions, one of them isn't going to be ready for at least a month and a half. So Bowden Francis is going to get the same leash that Davis Schneider got. Whether you agree with that or not, that's where the Jays are at. So all we hope for is Bowden Francis to become a competent 4th starter, and he doesn't become, the Alek Manoah post-Cy Young year, and where running him out there every 5 days is legitimately going to cost you baseball games, especially when we don't even know who's starting tomorrow because it's the 5th starter spot, and we have no idea who's going in that every 5 days. So it's a very murky situation. Hopefully the Jays have addressed it a little bit, but yeah, Bowden Francis is going to continue being a guy that they run out every 5 days. In my anticipation, the rest of the year.
Also,
I really don't.
Here's what I'll say too about what you just said about the book being out. That's not necessarily specific to Bowden. That's the book goes out on everybody. But the problem is that when you don't have the elite stuff and the elite, prospect rankings and all those tools that the scouts all covet, you're a little bit more skeptical as whether or not you'll be able to adjust. Obviously, we all know Vladimir Guerrero Jr. when he got called up, and obviously the book was out on him, and like he was struggling at first. Teams knew how to pitch him and all that, but the reason why everyone still had all the confidence in the world that Vlad would become an elite hitter was that the tools were there. The tools were there for him to break out like he did in 2021, and obviously be a significantly above average hitter the years subsequent that. And obviously he had a great year last year, and obviously that's why he got paid. But when it comes to Davis Schneider, once the book came out on him, like no one's there with the confidence. There's no one there that's saying that this will turn around, because there's no evidence that Davis Schneider has the tools to turn around and hit major league pitching after the book is out on them. And it goes with Bowden. We talked about it last year. This was a guy who made his big league debut at 28. There's a reason why
that's what I was just going to say.
There's a reason why he was a throw-in for a Rowdy Tellez trade where Rowdy Tellez was DFA. There's a reason why. It's not because he has this elite stuff. And credit to him for carving out a major league opportunity that's extended, and hopefully it goes for much longer. But ultimately it's hard to have a lot of confidence when the tools don't scream elite pitcher.
Yeah, despite what the Blue Jays broadcast will try to tell all fans across the world, these guys aren't young, and I hate it. I hate it when they've compared Bowden Francis to other young pitchers in the league. He wasn't young, and he isn't young, and neither was Davis Schneider last year or 2 years ago. So you guys don't break out at 27, 28. That is, what you are at that point, and very rarely can you make any changes to that.
And that's a prime example. Like a great example is Easton Lucas. Remember, everyone got horned up after the first couple starts. We're like, "Oh, this guy's elite." Yeah, just relax. He's 28 years old. There's a reason he's not in the big leagues. And then we saw BP happen, and we're like, "Yep, that's why you're in Buffalo, big dog." But let's get to the rest of the rotation. And I don't know about you guys, but to I guess a different extent, these moves give me. Oh God, I can't remember what year it was. Now, is it 21 or 22? When the Jays were so desperate in the bullpen, and they went out and got Adam Simber and
21. Trevor Richards.
And Trevor Richards.
Speaking of Bowden Francis, that was the Bowden Francis trade.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. They felt so desperate in that bullpen that they just had to make an early move, which you don't see very often. Now, these weren't trades because the Jays don't have assets they want to give up. Max Scherzer goes on the 60-day IL on Monday, which means he cannot pitch until the end of May. So that's a thing. Eric Swanson officially transferred to the to the 60-day IL as well. I think he's ramping back up in the minor leagues though right now. And the God, I mean, I'm gonna miss him dearly. Josh Walker goes down to AAA as well. And the Jays bring in 2 right-handed pitchers, Spencer Turnbull and Jose Urena, on 1-year deals. It's clearly a desperation move for that 5th spot in the rotation because they were tired of running Easton Lucas out there. We saw what's his face, Eric Lauer, and we're like, nope, that's done. All right, on to the next guy. And they've gone out and get Spencer Turnbull. Coley mentioned how Spencer Turnbull ain't ready to pitch yet. He's building up in rookie ball, so he's not here yet. So Jose Urena is probably going to be the one in that spot who pitched 1 time this year for
probably we'll see tomorrow in Anaheim.
God damn.
I don't know. So I actually disagree on the Eric Lauer thing. I think that he was competent enough to earn the start tomorrow.
He might pitch tomorrow. You might see a piggyback.
Honestly, it would definitely be a piggyback because Urena only pitched 1 time this year.
I don't think Urena is going to be like he's closer to ready. I don't think he's ready.
I think Urena has been pitching.
I think he's on the road trip. He's on the road trip in LA.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, he was with the team. Like I listened to, oh my god, what show was it? I can't remember. It was Jay's Talk or Bunkus's pod, but I think it was Ben who came on, so that he expects Jose Urena to pitch tomorrow. It's in some level.
Okay, but I bet
Lauer piggyback. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I bet Lauer starts. If you look at his stats against the Angels, they don't have much experience against him at all. Mike Trout, Mike Trout's injured, so it doesn't matter. But Mike Trout being one of them, has never faced Eric Lauer in his life, so I think that tomorrow your best shot at trying to win that game is starting Eric Lauer, and you figure it out after that. Like if what?
Isn't Trout hurt? I could be wrong.
No, he is. I said he's hurt, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But
yeah.
But my point is that very little experience from the Angels' perspective on Eric Lauer, so that could lend to a favorable matchup, and then you figure it out after that. If Eric Lauer gets to the 5th or 6th inning, then maybe you can save Urena.
Well, I can't imagine a scenario where Eric Lauer pitches the 6th tomorrow. Yeah, I feel like it's no.
You'll probably get
whatever
3
odds.
each.
Yeah. I think you'll probably see both of them pitch. Mainly because I don't think you trust either of them to give you multiple times through the lineup. So I think you might see a piggyback action.
You know what's crazy is Jose Urena threw 109 innings last year. 109 for the Rangers and an ERA sub 4, 380. I mean, he wasn't terrible.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting, I guess. How old is he now? I feel like he's 30 years old, 33 years old.
33 years old.
Yeah, he's bounced around quite a bit.
The tagline for both these guys, if you've missed the Blue Jays broadcast recently, they're both ground ball pitchers.
Love that.
They're elite. They're elite at getting ground balls. They're up in the 80th percentile if you check Baseball Savant for both of them last year. Spencer Turnbull projects to be a better pitcher for us in the long term once he does come back. And Urena is just to get you over the hill, just to bridge the gap for now until you get something better in the end. Because career-wise, below 100, he's like an 85 or 89, ERA plus for his career. And his Baseball Savant last year, despite James saying he not bad raw stats.
It's no good.
No good for the Savant last year. So
and ultimately people need to curb their expectations. These are guys who are free agents in Maine. There's a reason why they were free agents in Maine.
Rob, we just had a conversation about 28-year-olds having a couple good starts, and that doesn't mean squat.
Yes.
He's 33. If he goes
Both
out there tomorrow and throws 3 shutout innings, doesn't mean give him a contract already.
No, both of them. No. Both of them are Uranus 33 and Turnbull's 32, I believe.
Exactly. But ultimately, here's what I'll say. Well, I do think it is absolutely embarrassing that you have a top 5 payroll in baseball and you have 3 guys in your whole organization who you trust to give you a good outing, and you have, your offense is what it is. It's embarrassing that this is what you have with that top 5 payroll. A little shout out to Ross Atkins, but I don't mean to pile on. I do appreciate, at the very least, they are doing their due diligence and they're not letting it play out like last year. Remember last year we all complained about how there just seems to be a sense of urgency. This is such a big year. And ultimately, I do feel they've handled it okay. I do feel like going out there externally, getting 2 guys who can give you innings at the major league level, to me, that's not only an indication that you have to address the 5th starter spot, that's also an indication they don't completely disagree with us about Bowden Francis, about being skeptical. To me, that's what it signals by going out there getting 2 of these guys. Sorry, what did you say?
Keep going, buddy. Go on, buddy.
Yeah. And I was saying that also with the Easton Lucas thing, like they did a good job of like, okay, like there's no point in giving Easton Lucas another start. Like ultimately we got what we wanted out of him. We got 2 good starts, but ultimately if you keep throwing him out there, it's going to be an automatic loss or as close to it. They obviously tried the Eric Lauer thing that one game in relief, and ultimately they probably assessed that yes, even though he's in the organization, we probably need something a little bit with more higher upside. And while Jose Urania and Spencer Turnbull, obviously being that they're free agents in May, that would obviously signal that they're not the perfect solution. No one is a perfect solution if you're a free agent in May. These are 2 major league pitchers who have had success at the big league level as recently as last season. And hopefully that Turnbull will take a while. He'll have about 5 or 6 starts at the minor leagues to ramp up, but ultimately he's a guy who will probably pitch at some point within the next month or after the next month.
Right,
And
late June, middle June, yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah. So yeah, I applaud them for being aggressive and going out there and getting much needed pitching depth. Obviously, I don't expect either of these guys to have great performances, but if you can get 50 innings with an ERA plus close to 100, that's better than what you currently have to offer. So I'm for it.
Yeah, and in case it wasn't clear, this isn't us at all blaming the pitching woes that have happened ever so infrequently this year. Regardless of how bad Bowden Francis is right now, or how bad is he going to be, or how shitty that 5th starter spot has been for us and what it's caused us pitching-wise, those aren't the problems. The only reason why this team is in a hole is because of the offense, and it's as simple as that. There's so many pitching woes that would have been alleviated had they just blown teams out.
Yep, 100%.
It's pretty pathetic, guys. I'm trying to go back here to find. So other than that game where the Jays came mercifully from behind to beat the Red Sox 7-6, when was the last time the Jays scored 5 runs, fellas? You want to hear this one? Because it's
Friday.
What was that?
Friday.
You said before then.
Oh, before then, okay.
Yeah. And even then, like it was kind of a miracle to do so.
Can I guess? Can I take a guess?
Go for it. I mean, you probably get it right because knowing you.
Yeah.
It's not. It didn't. The Seattle's. Was it the Sunday against Seattle?
Nope.
No, we didn't get anything in Seattle. We scored I think we scored 4 runs in the Seattle series. 5 runs.
No, it was Houston. That was Houston.
No,
you lost 8-4 and 8-3 to Seattle in the final 2 games.
So okay, let me think. It was Atlanta, right? It was against Atlanta.
6-3. They won against Atlanta on the Tuesday, April 15th.
Damn.
And then that's it.
3 weeks.
All right, fellas, I'm done negative talk because there are some positives happening. Is it with the big club? No. Is it with the Bisons? No. Is it with New Hampshire? No. But we'll get there eventually. There is some positive stuff on the farm. Before we get to that stuff, we got to give a little shout out to our boy, Ross Stripling, calling it quits, hanging up the cleats, chicken strip. I mean, he was a guy kind of like Bowden Francis type where we're like, okay, we're waiting for you to fall off the cliff. And it never did. He really was incredible and just remarkable for this organization, and all the best in retirement. And now to the farm. And Jimmy, you got me teed up here, pal. Let's start talking positive prospects because there are some down in the minor leagues. Let's get to it. I might need to change that Buffalo Bison logo right in the middle because they stink. But down on the farm, there are a lot of positives. Quite a few arms because they're actually healthy. Touch wood. Arjun Demel is the big one, though. He's the big offensive one that everyone's losing their mind about. It's been a while since the Jays have had an offensive prospect like this in the org. I think he's one of the youngest players at high A ball playing for the Vancouver team.
The youngest.
There you go.
The youngest starter.
In his last 10 games, he's hitting .317 with a .417 OBP and a .659 slug for the season, which, again, not a whole lot of time, 23 games. He's hitting .295 with a .374 OBP, a .921 OPS. He has 6 homers, 6 doubles in 23 games. He is demolishing baseballs down there at 19 years old. It is very fun to watch and just finally something positive to talk about positionally. Now, to the pitching staff standpoint, we have how many times have we heard since Ross and Mark became the heads of the Blue Jays that they have had a absolute miserable time developing arms? They have been horrible at it. Now, Alek Manoah came through and it was great for a little bit, and then it's all fallen off a cliff for him. Hopefully he comes back near the end of the year or July or whatever and come back healthy and everything goes great. We don't know. But down in the minor leagues, there are some arms that are looking incredible. Now, one just got named Florida State League Player of the Week or Pitcher of the Week, and that was Trey Savage, Blue Jays' first-round pick the past year. And when we talk about dominance and shouldn't be there, that's him. He's pitched 23 innings. He has an ERA of 2.31. He has 36 strikeouts in 23 innings. And oh, by the way, 8 walks. Batting average against of $1.63, a whip of 0.9. He's just been electric. He's been flat out dominant, and I think New Hampshire is calling Vancouver probably will be calling very, very shortly. And that Vancouver pitching staff, if you're out west and love going to Vancouver Canadians games, you might want to buy some tickets soon because that's the rotation there is going to look quite sexy. Because another arm, again, I think it was their second round pick last year, Cal Steven. 29 and 2/3 innings, an ERA of $1.82, just like Trey Savage, 36 punchouts to 8 walks, a batting average against of 202, a whip of 0.94. These guys are leading the charge down there in Dunedin, and they have been outstanding to start their I guess professional career. And again, he could get the call to Vancouver very shortly. And who's sitting there in Vancouver? Actually, by the way, maybe back up a little bit. Trey Savage's last start, 6 innings, 4 hits, no walks, 8 punchouts. Cal Stevens' last start, 5 innings, 4 hits, no runs, no walks, 8 punchouts. Bottom line, they've done nothing but dominate those leagues. And right now, Warren Watts-Brown, who we talked about a little bit last year, hasn't had the dominant year that those guys have had, but he's already in Vancouver. He's gone 22 and 2/3 innings, an ERA of 3.53, 37 punchouts to 8 walks. And in his last start, yes, he went 4 innings, allowed a couple runs on 4 hits. But in 4 innings, he had 1 walk and 10 punchouts. So again, if you're in the Vancouver, British Columbia area and want to watch some baseball, boy, oh boy, you might get a good pitching performance because that might look really fun moving forward. So that's the positive sign in the farm, fellas. It's just some really good arms finally taking form. And hopefully guys like Ricky Tiedemann and Brandon Barriera get back healthy. And you might have some arms in the system, but as we all know, as of right now, they're just prospects.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. I hate defending Ross and Mark, but like, how much control do they have at all of our high-end pitching talent consistently year in and year out getting injured?
Yep.
I don't think that's all that on them. That's a hard thing to control. I don't even know what that success rate looks like amongst, good farm systems in Major League Baseball. I would assume that their training staffs are better on an aggregate basis, but who knows? I just think maybe it's just bad luck, or it is the training staffs that are employed in the minor leagues, but I don't want to, shit on them either. So I think it's a lot of bad luck. The Jays have had high-end pitching prospects that just haven't worked out because they've gotten injured.
Great
Yeah,
example.
I would agree with that.
Like Eric Pardinho. I mean, we had him on the show a while back when he was, we're coming back from Tommy John, and he had to deal with another big injury, and now he's trying to fight for a bullpen spot. So I get that. What do you got, Rob?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think from the pitching side of things, they've done a good job of identifying high upside guys. Unfortunately, like you mentioned, the guys who are sort of on the periphery of the major leagues, like a Ricky Tiedemann or a Brandon Barriera, they've both gotten injured. I mean, Ricky Tiedemann was supposed to make his debut at some point last year with the Tommy John injury. And obviously, you mentioned the lower level of the minors. There's a lot of guys who look promising. I think more so the issue that fans have with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro is that they've just position player front. They have just identified exclusively low floor guys. I mean, you obviously having, the 4A players that they have, that's, I do think that it's, the Alan Rodens and the Addison Barger and maybe Aurelvis Martinez at some point, they can be competent major leaguers who can have an impact, but ultimately there is no, maybe Arjun Amal is the guy, that's currently the lead runner, but there's no next Bowen Vlad. There's no guy, the blue chip type prospect that came up through the system and is ready to be a legitimate star. There's no guy in that perspective. But in terms of the pitching, obviously none of these guys are going to help the team in 2025. But yeah, it's good to see them have some arms that are a little farther down the pipeline, but ultimately still there. And who knows, with a team that runs the payroll the Blue Jays run, with the wild card being what it is, I mean, no prospect is inexpendable. If you have a chance to make a splash at the deadline, if you're in a good spot, then maybe you flip one of these guys.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Cole, can I jump in real quick before you do this? I looked up. You mentioned Rob, Ricky Tiedemann, and Brandon Barriera. Ricky Tiedemann he's been in the organization since 2021. He has 41 starts. That's it. I mean, you look at his last 2 years. He has a total of 23 starts in 2 years. You know, and you look at Brandon Barriera, has been in the organization since 2022. He's had 8 starts in his entire professional career. So it's really and Barriera's never pitched past A ball. He had 1 start in A ball and he blew his arm out, and that was it. Yeah. So it's painful. I get it.
The other positive thing is that if the Jays, are out of it at the end of July, the Vladdy thing means that these prospects mean something. The window has been extended for, over a decade. So all of these guys could have an impact in the future with the big league club because, like Rob said, they're going to continue to be a competitive ball club that's running out a top 10 payroll in baseball. And in doing so, either these guys make an impact or they get traded in for guys that can make an impact right away. But none of these guys have an ETA in 2025. None of these guys have an ETA in 2026. The earliest you could see any of these guys, in all likelihood, is going to be 2027. But Vladdy's still on the team in 2027, so the window's still wide open.
Definitely is. Yeah. And Cole, I know you got one more thing for us before we wrap this puppy up. So what do you got for me?
Obviously, for a lot of us, especially here in Canada, it is playoff season. The Toronto Maple Leafs just advanced to round 2 for the second time in the last decade or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah, baby. Let's get her going, fellas.
So here's the question. Would you rather be the Toronto Maple Leafs for the last decade that have had Stanley Cup aspirations but continue to lose in the first round of the playoffs every single year? Or would you rather be the Toronto Blue Jays for the last, let's say, 2 years that have had, playoff aspirations, maybe a deep playoff run at the peak scenario, but are failing to get to the postseason? Now, I'm going to take a guess at your 2 answers. I assume Rob is going to be, of course, I'll take the playoff team because watching a team win, even if it is just for the regular season, is significantly better than what the Jays are doing right now. Yeah. And James, with you being a Leafs fan, I have actually no idea what you would say because I can't imagine being a Leafs fan.
It sucks. Both suck. Let's be honest. I'm not going to go that far. They both stink. But watching. I mean, you mentioned the last couple of years, the Leafs made it past the first round twice in the last 2 years, or 3 years. Sorry. And so I get to enjoy that, where I'm watching the Blue Jays be just a pathetic watch, and I'm pulling my eyes out every single day. I'm good. I'll take Leafs hockey any day.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Any day of the week. Yeah. But game one in 10 minutes, boy. Here we go.
Ultimately, it's like you look at the Blue Jays specifically, 2023 versus 2024. 2023 was a Leaf season. Essentially, you have a team with high expectations. They get to the playoffs. You have a competitive year, and you lose in the first round in cartoonish fashion. That's basically what the Leafs have been the last decade. That's how you handicap it. You would 100% rather have that than the 2024 Jays. You know what I mean? You'd much rather have at least some false hope in the season being over in June. Yeah. Right? So to me, I think it's a rather easy answer. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
the reason why I thought it was a bit of a debate is because if you come into the year with playoff expectations and you don't meet that I feel like you're it's a longer disappointment than it is like with the Leafs, for example, when you have 82 games of joy. And then you go into the first round with Stanley Cup aspirations, and then it ends in the playoffs. But it's a shorter disappointment tenure, but a higher one because it's more painful to lose in the postseason. So that's why I thought it was a bit of a debate.
I'll jump in.
Is this not a debate? Like, would you rather never have loved, or would you rather love than have lost? Like, isn't that the same thing? Like, no, of course you'd rather. You'd rather have the moments. You'd rather have the moments, regardless of any heartbreak. The opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference. And last year was an indifferent, lifeless Jay season. I'd much rather have false hope that ends in heartbreak. 100%. Easy call.
Story of my life, boys. Heartbreak, well, sports-wise at least. But here we are. I'm ready to get hurt again, and I can't wait for it. All right, fellas. Appreciate you guys coming on. Rob Pintel, Cole Whiston, myself, James Price, Jimmy behind the scenes as always. What you got there?
The Raptors one. We got one.
We got one. Where is he? Hold on. There he is, right there. Beautiful stuff. Yeah, because winning is fun, and you don't see it very much in this city. So when you do, boy, do you hang on to it. All right, fellas, thanks so much for coming on as always. Jimmy, thanks so much as always, bud, behind the scenes. And as always, go Leafs, go. No, go Jays. Go Jays.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.